The first thing you notice is the sound. It's not just loud, it's a physical force, a deep, soul-shaking roar that tears the sky apart and makes the ground tremble beneath your feet. Through the window, I watched as the sleek blue and white Boeing C-32 descended, a symbol of absolute power landing in a place it had no business being. On the lawn, a cordon of black SUVs had formed a sterile corridor, guarded by men in dark suits with impassive faces and wires coiling into their ears. Their presence had silenced everything: the music, the laughter, the world itself. A man radiating an aura of immense authority strode past my stunned, gaping family and stopped right in front of me. He was the White House Chief of Staff, and his eyes were fixed on mine. "Director," he said, his voice cutting through the engine whine. "The president is on a secure line. He's invoked Operation Steadfast Sentinel. We're wheels up in 5, but a week earlier, there was no jet. There was only the cloying humidity of my parents' house, thick with the scent of catered food and my sister's expensive perfume. I was trying my best to become part of the wallpaper, a familiar strategy for me at these family gatherings. Then the room shifted, as it always did, when my sister Jessica, a high-flying real estate influencer who wore her success like armor, made her grand entrance. She was with her fiancé, a smirking city councilman who looked at their reflection in every available surface. Her eyes scanned the room and, of course, landed on me. "There's my little sister, the professional paper pusher," she announced to the room at large. Her voice was designed for public consumption, loud, bright, and sharp. "Still saving the world one staple at a time?" Her fiancé chuckled on cue. I felt a familiar heat rise in my chest, but I kept my expression neutral, my gaze low. My boss, Director Evans of the National Security Council, who was there as an old family friend, was standing just a few feet away. I saw his polite smile tighten for just a fraction of a second, a micro-expression that screamed disapproval. To him, this wasn't just a joke. It was a display of appalling indiscretion. He was the man who signed off on my top-secret clearance renewals, a process that scrutinized every corner of my life for any sign of instability or unreliability. Jessica, completely oblivious, sailed onward, leaning in conspiratorially as if sharing a great secret. "Honestly, Anya, when are you going to get a real job with a real bonus, instead of whatever pointless thing you do for the government?" Each word was a tiny, sharp stone, adding to the pile I'd been collecting my entire life. I thought of the long nights, the immense weight of the secrets I carried, the life-or-death decisions that crossed my desk, and I just nodded. Because in their world, my reality didn't exist. Jessica laughed, thinking it was just another harmless jab. She had no idea she'd just painted me as a frivolous non-entity in front of my direct superior, the man who held my entire career in his hands. To understand the silent, catastrophic chain of events she had just set in motion, you have to understand the two lives I was living. My two lives operated on completely different sets of physical laws. In one, I was a ghost, a background character in the sprawling, brightly lit production of my family's life. In the other, I was the gravitational center, a voice that could shift the global balance of power with a single, well-reasoned argument. The contrast was never sharper than during the holidays. I remember one Christmas vividly. The air was thick with the scent of pine and roasting turkey, but the real energy in the room came from my sister Jessica. She had just closed a massive property deal, and my parents were orbiting her like twin suns. Champagne corks popped, and my father held up a glass, his voice booming. To Jessica, the hardest working woman in real estate. The whole family cheered. Later, when the noise died down to a low hum, I found a quiet moment with my father by the fireplace. My heart was pounding a little, the way it always did when I tried to share a piece of my world with them. "Dad," I started, trying to keep my voice casual. "I got some good news at work. That policy paper I was writing on foreign energy dependence, it was just officially adopted by the State Department. I was proud of it. It had been months of relentless research, of 18-hour days, of battling bureaucratic inertia. It was a tangible victory that would have real-world impact." My father, a man who saw the world in terms of clear wins and losses, patted my arm distractedly, his eyes scanning the room for his star player. "That's nice, sweetie," he said, his smile pleasant but vacant. "Hey, did you see the commission check Jessica got? Nearly 6 figures. Can you believe it?" He then turned to my uncle and winked. "That's our Jessica for you, and we've got Anya the analyst, holding down the fort." He said the nickname with a warm chuckle, but it landed like ice in my stomach. It wasn't meant to be cruel, which somehow made it worse. It was the tone of a parent describing a child's quaint but ultimately meaningless hobby, like collecting stamps or building ships in a bottle. In that moment, the internal ledger I kept flipped open. I didn't just see his dismissal. I saw the missed science fairs, the parent-teacher conferences he was too busy for, the years of my quiet achievements being met with a polite, empty, "That's nice, sweetie." And then there was my other life. 24 hours after that Christmas dinner, I was in a place that felt like it was on another planet entirely. The White House Situation Room is nothing like it is in the movies. It's cold, sterile, and silent, with a tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. I was the youngest person at the table by at least 2 decades, surrounded by a constellation of power. 4-star generals with chests full of ribbons, gray-haired cabinet secretaries, and the nation's top intelligence officials. They all looked at me, waiting. The only sound was the low hum of the secure ventilation system. I pointed to a massive, high-resolution screen displaying satellite data. "The naval buildup in the South China Sea is a feint," I said, my voice steady and clear. "It's a distraction. The real threat is the imminent cyber attack on their power grid. The chatter I'm tracking through Echelon indicates a 0-day exploit targeting critical infrastructure." I paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. "They are trying to draw our eyes to the sea while they cripple the nation from within. I am recommending we move to threat condition Alpha and brief POTUS immediately." The room was silent for a beat. The air crackled. Then General Marcus, a man whose stern gaze could wither oak trees, looked down the table at me and nodded slowly, a profound look of trust in his eyes. He said the 5 words that were the antithesis of my entire family life. "The floor is yours, Director." That title, Director, was a key to a world my family couldn't even imagine. They saw a boring government job. My colleagues saw the person who connected the dots no one else could. This impossible duality was something I navigated daily. The disconnect was solidified by my mother, Carol, a woman who believed family harmony was worth any price, even the truth. After one of Jessica's particularly cutting remarks at a birthday party, my mother pulled me into the pantry, her expression soft and pleading. "You have to understand, Anya," she whispered. "Jessica's world is all about perception. It's so competitive, so visible. Your job is stable. She needs the encouragement more than you do." Her logic was a knife, twisted gently. My competence, my stability, my quiet strength, these were not assets to be celebrated. They were reasons I could be ignored. They were justifications for why my needs were secondary. Because I was strong, I was expected to endure. Because my work was important, it was treated as a secret to be kept, which made it easy for them to pretend it didn't exist at all. I lived a split-screen life. On one side, my family toasted Jessica's new diamond bracelet at some loud, gaudy restaurant. On the other, I sat alone in a silent, secure vault, my face illuminated only by a screen of geopolitical crisis points, holding a red-bordered folder stamped with the words "Top Secret." Eyes only. For years, I had accepted their narrative. I kept my head down, believing my work spoke for itself. But after that party, watching Director Evans's face, I realized my silence wasn't humility, it was a liability. They only understood the language of public spectacle. So, I decided I would finally let the spectacle speak for me. The day after the party, Director Evans called me into his office. The room was soundproof, a quiet sanctuary of power where whispers could become policy. He didn't mention my sister, or the party, or her spectacularly ill-timed insults. He didn't have to. His expression was serious, all traces of his family friend persona gone, replaced by the man who advised presidents. The international situation I'd been tracking, he informed me, was escalating. The intelligence was darkening far faster than our models had predicted. He told me to review and update my personal continuity of government or COG extraction plan by the end of the day. My objective was suddenly crystal clear, and it had nothing to do with my family. This wasn't about planning revenge. It was about planning for survival. I left his office with a cold, clear sense of purpose. The sting of Jessica's words faded, replaced by the familiar hum of a complex problem that needed solving. The COG protocol was specific. In the event of a decapitation strike on Washington, key personnel had designated extraction points. They had to be secure, non-obvious, and non-government affiliated to avoid being primary targets. My mind raced through options, discarding them one by one. And then it hit me. A text message from my mother from the week before, cheerfully reminding me of the big family reunion weekend, The same weekend the intelligence suggested would be the crisis peak. The reunion was at their remote lake house. It was isolated, miles from any strategic target, and most importantly, it was adjacent to a small private airfield. It was, by every cold, hard metric, the perfect location. My family's loud, ostentatious social gathering was the perfect operational cover. I went to a secure terminal, my fingers moving deliberately across the keyboard. There was no emotion in the action, just pure, calculated logic. I wasn't setting a trap. I was following protocol with surgical precision. I officially designated the Jensen Private Airfield as my primary exfiltration point for Operation Steadfast Sentinel, listing the dates of the family reunion as my window of availability. Just as I was about to hit submit, my phone buzzed. It was a group text from Jessica. "Don't you dare be late for the reunion. No work excuses." I glanced at the message, a ghost of a smile touching my lips, and pressed enter. Before I left for the day, I stopped by Director Evans's office. "Sir, my updated COG plan is filed," I said. He pulled up the file, his eyes scanning the details. He looked from the screen to me, a flicker of understanding in his gaze. "It's unorthodox, Anya," he said, his voice a low rumble. "But your logic is sound. Approved." He paused for a moment, the full weight of our reality settling in the space between us. Let's hope to God we don't need it. The system was now locked in. The plan was filed. The protocols were set. My sister wanted me at the family reunion to be her audience. She had no idea she had just scheduled her front row seat to the end of her world as she knew it. The day of the reunion was painfully perfect. The sun cast a diamond-like shimmer across the lake, the air smelled of freshly cut grass and barbecue smoke, and the sound of cheerful, meaningless chatter filled the air. My family was in its element. My father was holding court by the grill, my mother was coordinating everything with a frantic smile, and my sister, Jessica, was the undisputed queen of the party. I had found a quiet chair on the deck, a little removed from the main festivities, my pre-packed go-bag resting discreetly by the door. My phone stayed dark in my lap, but my thumb periodically swiped the screen, my nerves a tightly coiled spring hidden beneath a calm exterior. Jessica, drink in hand, eventually made her way over, a smirk playing on her lips. "Still staring at that phone?" she asked, her voice dripping with mock concern. "Is there a national paperclip emergency I should know about?" Before I could even formulate a response, my phone vibrated. Not with a call or a text, but a single, sharp pulse. I looked down at the locked screen. There was one line of encrypted text. "Sentinel, Isa go." I stood up, my movements calm and deliberate. It was then that the first sound reached us, a low, distant rumble that was more felt than heard. A few guests paused their conversations, tilting their heads. The rumble grew steadily, deepening into the unmistakable thunderous roar of high-performance jet engines. It was too loud, too low, too fast. Everyone was looking at the sky now, shielding their eyes against the sun, their faces a mixture of curiosity and confusion. The blue and white Boeing C-32 screamed overhead, banking hard over the lake in a maneuver that was anything but commercial. As it aligned with the nearby private airfield, a new sight snapped everyone's attention back to the ground. Black SUVs were racing up the long driveway. They didn't move like party guests. They moved with a terrifying, predatory purpose. The cheerful music from the speakers faltered and died. In a matter of seconds, the vehicles had formed a perfect, intimidating perimeter around the house, disgorging a dozen men in dark suits. They moved with a quiet, unnerving efficiency, securing the area, their eyes constantly scanning, their presence sucking all the air out of the cheerful summer day. The party was over. A different kind of event had just begun. From the lead vehicle stepped a man who commanded authority without raising his voice. It was David Thorne, the White House Chief of Staff, a man whose calm demeanor was more intimidating than any weapon. He scanned the crowd of frozen, bewildered faces, his gaze sweeping past my father, past Jessica's stunned fiancé, past my sister herself. His eyes found me, and he began to walk, his path a straight, undeviating line directly toward me. My father, puffing out his chest, took a half-step forward as if to intercept him, but Thorne's gaze never wavered from me, and my father simply stopped. Thorne came to a halt a few feet in front of me, ignoring everyone else as if they were merely part of the landscape. "Director Sharma," he said. His voice was formal, urgent, and loud enough for everyone to hear. That one word, director, was a shockwave that rippled through my family. I saw Jessica flinch as if she'd been struck. "The international cyber attack has begun," Thorne continued, his tone clipped and professional. "Power grids are failing on the East Coast. The president has invoked Operation Steadfast Sentinel based on your final threat assessment." He gestured with his head toward the airfield, where the jet's engines still screamed. "Air Force One is waiting. POTUS needs you at the command bunker. You're mission critical." There was a delicate, shattering sound. Jessica's wine glass had slipped from her fingers, breaking on the deck, a dark red stain spreading like blood. Her face was a canvas of raw, unfiltered shock, her mouth hanging open as her mind struggled to connect the sister she mocked with the woman being addressed. Her fiancé, the councilman, looked pale, his political instincts telling him he was on the profoundly wrong side of an immense power shift. And my parents? They were just frozen, their faces blank with an utter lack of comprehension. They had become irrelevant scenery in a national emergency that revolved around their invisible daughter. All the years of being overlooked, of being patted on the head, of being Anya the analyst, it all collapsed in that one stunning moment. I didn't look at them. I simply gave Director Thorne a single sharp nod. I turned, picked up my go-bag from by the door, and walked toward the waiting SUV. My stride was even, my back was straight, and my focus was already 1,000 miles away on the crisis I now had to manage. I didn't need to look back. I could feel the weight of their stares, the crushing gravity of their shattered reality. My sister had spent my whole life mocking my job. In the end, it took the full weight of the U.S. government descending on her party to make her understand that my pointless job was the only thing that mattered. As the heavy door of the SUV closed, it sealed off the world I had known. The roar of the jet engines outside was a deafening roar, but inside, a new kind of quiet fell. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could picture the scene perfectly, the wreckage of a party, the confused guests being politely but firmly ushered away by Secret Service agents, and my family, standing alone on their perfect deck, suddenly small and insignificant. They were no longer the stars of the show, they were footnotes in a government after-action report. A secure satellite phone was pressed into my hand, and I was already on the line, my voice calm and authoritative, receiving the first briefing as we raced toward the airfield. The chaos behind me was their problem now. My focus was on the chaos ahead. The 2 weeks that followed were a blur of caffeine, adrenaline, and relentless focus from inside a secure command bunker deep underground. We worked around the clock, countering every move the attackers made, shoring up firewalls and redirecting critical resources. My analysis, my strategies, my team, we held the line. And then, it was over. The crisis was stabilized. The country was safe. The silence that followed the storm was almost as deafening as the initial chaos. My return to the world above ground was surreal, and it culminated in a place I had only ever seen in pictures. I was standing in the Oval Office. The afternoon sun streamed through the famous windows, catching dust motes dancing in the air. The room was smaller than I expected, but the weight of the history within its curved walls was immense. I was there with Director Evans and a few other key officials. The President of the United States stood before us, his face etched with fatigue but also with profound gratitude. He looked directly at me, and the world seemed to shrink to just the two of us. "Anya," he said, his voice quiet but carrying the power of his office. He extended his hand. "Your foresight prevented a catastrophe. The country is in your debt." I shook his hand, the grip firm and real. In that moment, every condescending "that's nice, sweetie" I had ever received simply evaporated. This was respect, absolute and earned. But my new life wasn't defined by those grand historic moments. It was defined by the quieter ones that followed. A few days later, I was in a drab government cafeteria, sitting with the core members of my NSC team. We were eating lukewarm chili from plastic bowls and drinking bad coffee, but I had never felt more at home. We laughed about the close calls, the ridiculous hours, the sheer insanity of what we had just been through. There was an easy camaraderie, a shorthand born of shared crisis and mutual respect. They didn't need to be told what I did. They were the ones in the digital trenches with me. This was my new family, one founded not on obligation or blood, but on competence and trust. My office now had a view of the Washington Monument, a constant, solid reminder of the world I was sworn to protect. I was looking over a new intelligence brief one afternoon when my personal phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Jessica. It was long, a single block of rambling text. Anya. I had no idea, it read. I saw you on the news, they called you a hero. Why didn't you ever tell us? How could we have known? Dad is a wreck, Mom just cries. I feel like such a fool. I'm so sorry, Anya, for everything. I read the message once. Then I read it again. There was no anger in me. There was no triumph. There was only a quiet, sad sense of peace. The internal ledger I had kept for so long was closed. The accounts were settled. Her apology. It was for her, not for me. I realized with a profound sense of clarity that my peace was no longer dependent on her understanding. With a steady finger, I held down on the message and tapped archive. I didn't reply. I turned back to the classified briefing on my screen, my focus already shifting to the next horizon, the next threat, the next puzzle to be solved. My sister built her life, trying to be the most important person in the room. I built mine by being the one who knew what to do when the room itself was on fire.